Gun smoke mingled with desert dust as the young woman was pushed aside from the SEAL formation. The men moved past her like she was invisible, their boots crunching against the gravel of forward operating base Viper. Someone muttered something under his breath. Another one laughed. She heard every word. But Kira Ashford did not react. She had learned long ago that reactions were weaknesses. Her father had taught her that. The same father whose name was now carved into a memorial wall at Fort Bragg. The same father whose shadow she had been chasing for 8 long years. The night air of Kandahar carried the familiar scent of diesel fumes and distant gunpowder. It was past 2 in the morning, but sleep was impossible. Not tonight. Not before her first real mission with Iron Wolf. Kira sat alone behind the equipment tent, her M2010 enhanced sniper rifle resting across her knees. The weapon was an extension of her body at this point. She knew every curve, every mechanism, every subtle vibration it made when she pulled the trigger. Her fingers moved automatically, checking the calibration for the 3rd time that hour. It was already perfect. She knew that, but the ritual calmed her nerves. From inside the briefing tent, voices drifted through the canvas walls. The rest of Iron Wolf was conducting their pre-mission review, and they were not being quiet about their opinions. "I'm just saying Mercer is making a mistake." The gravelly voice belonged to Master Chief Donnelly, a mountain of a man with 30 years of combat experience etched into the scars on his face. "This operation is tight. We cannot afford dead weight." Kira's jaw tightened, but she kept her breathing steady. 4 counts in, hold, 6 counts out. The rhythm her father had taught her when she was 12 years old, standing in the Montana mountains with his old hunting rifle pressed against her shoulder. She qualified top of her class. Someone else offered. The defense sounded half-hearted at best. "On a range," Donnelly shot back. "With no one shooting back. With no blood. With no chaos. That girl has never seen what happens when a bullet hits bone. When a man bleeds out in your arms. When you have to make a kill shot while your best friend is screaming for his mother." Silence. Then another voice. Sergeant Blake Holloway. Young, aggressive, and absolutely convinced that women had no place in special operations. "Look, we all know why she's here. Her old man was Thomas Ashford, the legend, the ghost of Fallujah. Command thinks putting his daughter on the team is good optics. But optics don't stop bullets, and legacy doesn't make you combat ready." Kira closed her eyes, steadied herself with the breathing rhythm her father had drilled into her memory. The world tried to shake her. People tried to break her. But she would not give them the satisfaction. "Focus on your breathing," he had said all those years ago. "The world will try to shake you. People will try to break you. But if you control your breath, you control yourself. And if you control yourself, you control the outcome." She had been a child then, skinny and eager and desperate to prove she could keep up with her father. He had been patient with her in a way he was patient with no one else. The great Colonel Thomas Ashford, feared by enemies and respected by allies, had infinite gentleness for his only daughter. That was before the accident, before the Marine Corps recruiter showed up at the funeral with a folded flag and a promise that service would give her purpose. "Your father was one of the best men I ever served with," the recruiter had said, "and I see him in your eyes, that same fire, that same determination." Kira had been 18 years old, standing in a black dress that did not fit right, watching them lower her father into the ground. She had made her decision before the first shovel of dirt hit the coffin. She would become what he was. She would honor his memory. She would prove that his legacy lived on. 8 years later, she was here. Forward operating base Viper, the edge of civilization, about to deploy on her first real mission with the most elite unit in the United States military. And half the team thought she was a liability. The tent flap opened. Corporal Nolan Price emerged, his face carefully neutral when he spotted her sitting in the shadows. He was the youngest on the team besides her 24 years old, with the kind of earnest face that had not yet been hardened by too many deployments. "Commander wants everyone inside," he said without meeting her eyes. "You too." Kira secured her rifle in its case and followed him into the tent. 8 men looked up as she entered. The fluorescent lantern cast harsh shadows across tactical maps spread on folding tables. The air was thick with tension and testosterone, and the unspoken belief that she did not belong. Colonel Garrett Mercer stood at the head of the table. He was 53 years old with gray threading through his dark hair and a face that had seen more combat than most men could imagine. His eyes were sharp, missing nothing, revealing nothing. He had served with her father. They had been friends, though Mercer rarely spoke of it. When Kira had completed her qualification, when she had survived BUDS and dive school and SEER training, Mercer had been the one to offer her a slot with Iron Wolf. "I'm not giving you this because of your father," he had told her during the interview. "I'm giving you this because when I watched you shoot, I saw something rare. You don't force the rifle. You listen to it. You become part of it. That's not something you can teach." Now, standing in the briefing tent with doubt radiating from every man in the room, Kira wondered if Mercer was regretting that decision. "Now that we're all here," Mercer began, his voice flat and commanding, "let's go over this one more time." He tapped the satellite image spread across the main table. The compound was a cluster of buildings nestled in a valley surrounded by steep canyon walls on three sides. "Our target is a compound in the Al Rahim Valley. CIA asset call sign Shepard has been held there for 6 days. Intelligence suggests he's still alive, but his captors are planning to move him within 48 hours. After that, he disappears into the network and we never see him again." Mercer's finger traced a line along the map. "The valley is a natural kill box. Steep walls on three sides, single access road from the north. The group holding him are not insurgents. They are former Spetsnaz, Russian special forces who went private 5 years ago. They are professionals with military-grade equipment, including thermal optics and possibly optical camouflage technology." Donnelly leaned forward, his scarred hands flat on the table. "What's our Overwatch situation?" "Single sniper position here." Mercer tapped a ridge overlooking the compound. 1,100 meters from the primary structure, clear sight lines to the main building guard tower and breach point." He paused. The silence stretched. "Ashford, that's your post." The temperature in the tent dropped. Someone shifted uncomfortably. Holloway made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a curse. "Sir," Donnelly said carefully, "that position is critical. If we're compromised, Overwatch is our lifeline. Our only lifeline. With respect, Lieutenant Ashford has 0 combat deployments. She has never fired a shot in anger. She has never. She has more confirmed kills on the range than anyone in this tent." Mercer's voice cut through like a blade. "At distances, most of you couldn't even spot a target. I've seen her put 5 rounds through a 2-inch circle at 1,200 meters in crosswind conditions. I've watched her adapt to variables faster than operators with 10 times her experience." He looked around the room, meeting every pair of eyes. "This discussion is over. Ashford takes Overwatch. Questions about the actual mission." Silence settled like concrete. Kira kept her face impassive, but her pulse quickened beneath her calm exterior. This was it. Her chance to prove she belonged, or her chance to fail in front of everyone who had ever doubted her. There was no third option. After the briefing, she returned to her quarters. A plywood cubicle barely large enough for a cot and a footlocker. The walls were covered with maps and mission schedules. A small photograph was taped above her bunk. Her father in his dress uniform the day he received his Silver Star. She pulled out the leather journal he had carried through 3 deployments. The pages were worn soft from years of handling, the ink faded, but still legible. She opened to a page she had read 100 times before. "Kira," his handwriting read, "if you're reading this, I'm gone. But here's what I need you to remember. Being a good soldier isn't about being fearless. It's about being more afraid of letting down the person next to you than you are of dying. When you're scared, and you will be scared, focus on the mission. Focus on bringing your team home. That's how you honor the uniform. That's how you honor me." She traced the words with her fingertip, feeling the slight indentation where his pen had pressed into the paper. For a moment, she could almost hear his voice, low and steady the way it always was when he was teaching her something important. "I won't let you down, Dad," she whispered. "I promise." She closed the journal and slid it back into her footlocker. Tomorrow she would find out if she could live up to his legacy, or if everyone who doubted her had been right all along. The corridor outside her quarters was quiet. Most of the team was getting what sleep they could before the mission, but Kira found herself walking toward the shooting range, unable to rest, needing to feel the weight of her rifle one more time. She was halfway there when Master Chief Donnelly stepped out of the shadows. Up close, the man was even more intimidating. 6 feet 4 inches of scar tissue and contained violence. His hands were massive, calloused from decades of weapons handling. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes held the flat, assessing look of someone who had killed many times and would not hesitate to kill again. "Listen, Ashford." His voice was quiet, almost gentle. "I don't know you. Maybe Mercer's right and you're the second coming of Carlos Hathcock. But up in those mountains, if you miss a shot, if you hesitate for even a second, good men die. My men." Kira met his stare without flinching. "I won't miss, Master Chief." Donnelly studied her for a long moment. His expression gave nothing away. Finally, he nodded slowly. "I hope not, because if this goes sideways, you're the only thing standing between us and body bags. Don't make me regret believing Mercer." He walked away without another word. Kira stood in the corridor, her resolve hardening like steel in a forge. She had faced doubt her entire career, from instructors who tried to break her because she was female, from fellow trainees who resented her presence, from superior officers who questioned whether she had earned her position or been given it because of her father's name. None of them had stopped her. She would not let Donnelly's doubts stop her either. As she continued toward the range, another figure emerged from a doorway. Sergeant Holloway, arms crossed, leaning against the wall with studied casualness. "Inspiring speech," he muttered. "Too bad confidence doesn't stop bullets." Kira shouldered her rifle case. "Neither does cynicism, Sergeant." She left him standing there and headed to the armory. The M210 needed final calibration for the mission conditions. She would be shooting at altitude in cold air with potentially variable wind. The margin for error was microscopic. A fraction of a degree off and a perfect shot became a miss that could cost lives. Alone in the weapons bay, she disassembled the rifle with practiced efficiency. Her hands moved automatically, checking each component with the same care a surgeon would give to surgical instruments. The barrel was clean, the bolt was smooth. The trigger broke at exactly 3 pounds of pressure. She loaded 5 rounds of M118 long-range ammunition into the magazine, then a sixth into the chamber. At 175 grains and 2,080 feet per second, muzzle velocity each round could reach out past 1,200 meters with lethal precision. The physics were simple. The execution was not. "Your weapon ready?" Mercer's voice made her turn. The commander stood in the doorway, his own rifle slung across his back, his face unreadable in the dim light. "Yes, sir." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "Donnelly's worried," Mercer finally said. "Holloway thinks I'm making a political statement. Half the team thinks you'll freeze up when rounds start flying." "And what do you think, sir?" Mercer's expression did not change. "I think you've got something to prove. And soldiers with something to prove are either the bravest or the most dangerous. Sometimes both." He paused and something shifted in his eyes. Something that might have been memory. "Your father once told me that the hardest shot he ever took was the one where he had to trust himself completely. No spotter, no backup, no second chance. Just him and the target and his belief that he'd done everything right." Mercer's voice softened. "That's what tomorrow's going to be like for you." "I'm ready, Commander." "I know." He turned to leave, then stopped at the door. "Ashford, when I call your name tomorrow, when everything's gone to hell, and we're taking fire from positions we didn't expect, you remember that I chose you because I've seen hundreds of snipers. Hundreds. You're one of maybe 5 I'd trust with my life." The words hung in the air. "Don't let the noise in your head make you forget that." After he left, Kira sat in the silent armory, the weight of the rifle across her knees. Outside, helicopter rotors began their pre-flight tests, a rhythmic thunder that shook the walls. 16 hours until insertion. 16 hours until she discovered if she was worthy of the uniform, or if she was just another soldier who had confused confidence for competence. She thought about her father, about the last time she had seen him standing in the doorway of their Montana home, his duffel bag over his shoulder, his smile warm despite the weight of what awaited him. "I'll be back before you know it, kiddo," he had said. "And when I get home, we'll go up to the ridge and I'll teach you how to read wind patterns at extreme distance. It's the hardest skill a sniper can learn. But you're ready." He had kissed her forehead, climbed into the waiting vehicle, waved once through the window. She never saw him again. The official report said he died in an ambush. Enemy forces had superior numbers and positioning. Colonel Thomas Ashford had held them off long enough for his team to evacuate, then fallen when his ammunition ran out. He received the Bronze Star posthumously, a flag folded into a triangle, a memorial service with full military honors. But none of that brought him back. Kira had spent 8 years training to be half the soldier he was. 8 years of pushing herself past every limit. 8 years of being told she could not, should not, would not succeed. And now finally she had the chance to prove them all wrong. The briefing room at 0400 hours smelled of coffee and gun oil. The mission had been moved up. New intelligence suggested Shepard would be executed at dawn if they did not extract him within the next 16 hours. Mercer stood before a digital display showing thermal imaging of the Al Rahim compound. Update from Langley. Our targets aren't just former Spetsnaz. Their leader is Sergei Volkov, ex-Russian Special Forces, who went private 5 years ago. He's been linked to at least 7 successful ambushes of NATO forces. The man doesn't make mistakes, he doesn't panic, and he doesn't leave witnesses. Corporal Price whistled low. That's who's holding Shepard. Makes sense, Mercer replied. Shepard was close to exposing a weapons trafficking network that moves hardware from Eastern Europe to every conflict zone on the planet. Someone paid good money to make him disappear. When the agency started asking questions, Volkov decided to make an example. He switched to an overhead view. We insert via helicopter at LZ Phoenix 8 clicks north of the target. Hike on foot to avoid detection. Ashford establishes overwatch position at Sheev 30. Primary assault team Donnelly Holloway Price. Torres and myself moves to breach point here. His laser pointer indicated a blind spot in the compound's southern wall. Ashford's job is to provide early warning and eliminate any sentries that compromise our approach. Once we're inside, she maintains watch for reinforcements or escape attempts. We extract Shepard, move to secondary landing zone here, and exfiltrate via Chinook. Total mission time 90 minutes from insertion to pickup. He paused, meeting each person's eyes in turn. I'll say this once. This is not a training exercise. Volkov's people are professionals who have killed more experienced operators than us. Every mistake will be punished. Every hesitation could be fatal. Check your ego at the door, trust your training, and trust each other. His gaze lingered on Kira for half a second longer than the others. Not doubt, she realized. Expectation. After dismissal, she gathered her equipment. Rifle case, ammunition, hydration pack, first aid kit, communications gear. 40 pounds of hardware that would feel like 400 by the time they reached the overwatch position. She was checking her night vision goggles when Holloway appeared beside her. You know, he said quietly, there's no shame in backing out. Mercer would understand. Everyone would understand. First real mission, high-stakes, hostile environment. No one would blame you for staying with the helicopter. Kira looked at him. Really looked. Past the hostility and the condescension to the fear underneath. He was not worried about her failing. He was worried about dying because of her failure. Sergeant, she said evenly, I appreciate your concern, but I've spent 8 years preparing for this moment. I've broken bones in training. I've been told I don't belong by men twice your age with 10 times your experience. And I'm still here. She zipped her pack closed. So with respect, I'm not backing out. I'm not staying with the helicopter. I'm going to that ridge, I'm going to do my job, and I'm going to bring everyone home, including you. Holloway stared at her for a long moment. Then without a word, he turned and walked away. The helicopter banked hard over the mountains. Turbulence rattled every bolt and rivet as they crossed into the valley. Kira sat wedged between Holloway and Price, her rifle secured in a vertical hard case pressed against her knees. Through the open side door, Afghanistan's landscape rolled past in shades of gray and darker gray under the moonless sky. Mountains like broken teeth, valleys like wounds, a land that had swallowed armies for centuries and showed no signs of stopping. No one spoke. The rotor noise made conversation impossible, but more than that, each operator was inside their own head, running through procedures, visualizing contingencies, preparing for the violence that was coming. Donnelly checked his medkit for the 3rd time. Torres tested his radio encryption. Holloway just stared at nothing, jaw working on a piece of gum. Mercer sat across from Kira, his face illuminated by the green glow of a tablet displaying real-time satellite feeds. He looked up once, caught her eye, and nodded. No encouragement, no warning, just acknowledgement. She was one of them now, for better or worse. The pilot's voice crackled through their headsets. 2 minutes to LZ Phoenix. Weather's deteriorating. Winds gusting to 25 knots. Dust storm moving in from the west. Kira felt tension coil in her stomach. Variable wind meant variable trajectory. She would have to read the Mirage watch for tells in the dust patterns, maybe even adjust for Coriolis effect at extreme range. Every complication was another chance for error. 30 seconds. Green light. The helicopter flared, kicking up a brown cloud that swallowed the landscape. Before the skids touched Earth, Donnelly was out weapon up scanning for threats. The rest followed in practice sequence. Kira was forth out her boots hitting rocky soil as the downdraft threatened to knock her sideways. The helicopter lifted immediately, leaving them in sudden, profound silence. Mercer signaled diamond formation, Kira at center. They moved into the mountains. Night vision turned the world into shades of green phosphorescence. The terrain was brutal, loose scree, hidden gullies, thorny vegetation that grabbed at equipment and tore at exposed skin. Kira controlled her breathing, staying in rhythm with the team's pace. Her rifle case was strapped diagonally across her back. 40 pounds that might as well have been 400 by the time they reached the overwatch position. But she did not complain, did not ask for a break, just kept moving. 2 hours into the hike, they reached a narrow canyon pass. The walls rose 50 feet on either side, the path between them barely wide enough for single file. Donnelly went first, testing handholds on the rock face. Holloway followed, then Torres and Price. Kira went fifth, Commander Mercer bringing up the rear. Halfway up the steepest section, her boots slipped on wet stone. For one terrifying second, she dangled by her fingertips, the rifle case throwing off her balance. Below a 50-foot drop onto jagged rocks. Her fingers screamed, her shoulders burned. A hand clamped around her wrist. Holloway braced above her muscles, straining face twisted with effort. "I've got you," he grunted. "Move your right foot up. There's a ledge." She found it, pushed, scrambled over the rim. Holloway helped pull her up, then immediately turned away as if embarrassed by his own assistance. "Thanks," Kira managed. "Just move faster next time," he muttered. But there was less edge in his voice than before. They reached the overwatch position at 0525, 5 minutes ahead of schedule. The spot was perfect, a shallow depression behind a rock outcropping that provided natural cover while offering a clear sightline to the compound below. The enemy would never see her unless they knew exactly where to look. Kira pulled out her rangefinder and began calculating distances. Compound main building, 142 meters. Guard tower north, 987 meters. Southern wall breach point, H1 56 meters. She entered the data into her ballistic calculator, adjusted for altitude and temperature, and set up her rifle on a small bipod. Through the scope, the compound resolved into sharp detail. 4 buildings arranged around a central courtyard. 2 vehicles parked near the main structure. A generator humming in an outbuilding. Guards at least 8 visible, moving with military precision. "Iron Wolf, actual to Iron Wolf 6, Mercer's voice whispered in her earpiece. "Overwatch, are you in position?" "Affirmative," Kira replied. "I count 8 hostiles visible, 3 more probable inside main building based on thermal shadows. Guard rotation every 15 minutes. They're disciplined." "Copy. Stand by for assault team movement." Kira settled behind her rifle, slowing her heart rate, feeling the wind's pattern against her cheek. The dust storm the pilot had mentioned was building on the western horizon, a brown wall advancing like a slow-motion tsunami. If it reached the valley before they extracted, visibility would drop to 0. Another variable, another complication. Below, the assault team materialized from the shadows, ghosts in tactical gear. They reached the southern wall without incident. Donnelly placed a breaching charge while Holloway covered the courtyard approach. Kira tracked movement through her scope. 2 guards on the roof, 1 near the vehicles, another walking the perimeter. Everything was going according to plan. Then everything went wrong. A guard emerged from the main building, unexpectedly. He was not on the rotation schedule. He was not supposed to be there. But he was there, and he had a radio pressed to his lips. He had seen something. Before Kira could report it, the man raised an alarm. Floodlights blazed across the compound. Armed figures poured from doorways. Not 8 guards, not 10. Dozens. "Contact!" Donnelly's voice cracked through the radio. We are compromised. Abort, abort. Gunfire erupted. Tracer rounds lit up the night in red streaks. The assault team scattered pinned behind the wall as automatic weapons fire chewed apart the stone above their heads. Kira's scope swept across targets. Too many. They were coordinated professional, already setting up overlapping fields of fire. This was not panic. This was not chaos. This was a trap. They had known Iron Wolf was coming. Through her earpiece, chaos unfolded. Price is hit. Fall back too. They're flanking from the north. Then cutting through the noise, Commander Mercer's voice. Steady as iron. Iron Wolf sniper, you're up. Kira's training took over. 8 years of preparation. Thousands of hours behind the rifle. Every doubt, every fear, every moment of uncertainty vanished. There was only the scope, only the targets, only the mission. She found the first target through her crosshairs, a machine gunner laying down suppressing fire from the guard tower. Center mass, breathe. The rifle bucked against her shoulder. Through the scope, she saw the man crumple. Second target, a squad leader directing fire from behind a vehicle. Harder shot, partially concealed. She aimed for the gap between the truck's door and frame. Squeezed, the man dropped. Third target, someone with an RPG climbing to a rooftop. Longest range yet, nearly 1,200 meters with wind gusting unpredictably. Kira watched dust swirl near the compound, calculated the drift, aimed 3 feet left of center, fired. The figure tumbled backward. The RPG clattered unfired down the roof tiles. Good hits, Donnelly shouted over the radio. Keep them off us. But more enemies kept coming. This was not 8 guards. It was not 20. It was 30, maybe more. Sergei Volkov had reinforced his position. He had anticipated the assault. And now Iron Wolf was pinned down with a wounded man and no exit strategy. A muzzle flash from a previously clear window. Kira saw it half a second before the bullet cracked past Mercer's position. Enemy sniper. She swung her rifle, found the position, and fired twice. The first shot shattered the window frame. The second found its target. But her bolt jammed on the next round. Dirt from the earlier climb must have gotten into the action. She cursed, cleared it, manually chambered a fresh round. Lost 3 seconds. In combat and eternity. Iron Wolf 6. Mercer's voice was strained now. Urgent. We have enemy reinforcements moving from the North Canyon. 2 vehicles. Multiple dismounts. We're about to be surrounded. Kira swung her scope to the north approach. 2 technical trucks, each with a heavy machine gun mounted in the bed. Racing toward the compound like predators closing on wounded prey. At least a dozen fighters visible. This was no longer a rescue mission. It was survival. And she was the only thing standing between her team and annihilation. The weight of the rifle felt different now. Heavier, more significant. Each round in her magazine was a life saved or a life lost. In the distance, the dust storm rolled closer. The sky was turning brown. Time was running out. Kira Ashford, daughter of a legend, took a breath and prepared to forge her own legend, or die trying. The technical trucks roared closer. Their headlights cut through the pre-dawn darkness like the eyes of hungry wolves. Kira tracked the lead vehicle through her scope, calculating intercept angles with the cold precision her father had drilled into her since childhood. Standard anti-vehicle doctrine called for targeting the driver, but these trucks had reinforced cabs, armored plating bolted to the doors, bulletproof glass that would deflect anything short of a direct hit from a .50 caliber round. The machine gunners in the truck beds were exposed, but killing them would not stop the vehicles. The trucks would keep coming, the fighters inside would dismount, and Iron Wolf would be caught between 2 forces with nowhere to run. She needed a different approach. The lead truck hit a bump in the road. The entire vehicle bounced on worn suspension. In that instant, barely half a second, the fuel tank mounted behind the cab became visible. A flash of metal in the moonlight. Kira adjusted her aim, 6 inches lower than where the driver sat. She accounted for the metal's thickness, the angle of penetration, the velocity of the vehicle. Breathe. Wait for the rhythm of the truck's movement. Now. The rifle barked. The recoil pushed against her shoulder like an old friend. For half a second, nothing happened. The truck kept coming. Kira felt her blood run cold. Then orange flame erupted from beneath the chassis. The vehicle swerved wildly. The driver lost control as fire consumed the cab. The truck rolled once twice and came to rest on its side. Black smoke poured from the wreckage. Men screamed inside. The second truck swerved to avoid the burning obstacle. Its driver panicked, overcorrected. The vehicle fishtailed on the loose gravel road. Kira put 2 rounds through its right front tire at 1,300 meters. The truck spun, clipped a boulder, flipped onto its roof. Bodies tumbled from the bed like rag dolls scrambling for cover as they hit the ground. Reinforcements neutralized, Kira reported into her radio. Her voice was steady, calm, as if she had not just performed 2 of the most difficult shots of her life. But you have dismounts converging on your position. At least 8 fighters closing from the northeast. Copy that, Mercer replied. Gunfire crackled in the background. Donnelly, get Price stabilized. Holloway Torres set up a defensive line at the breach. Ashford. He paused. The chaos continued behind his words. We need a path out of here. Find us one. Kira pulled back from her scope and studied the larger tactical picture. The compound sat at the base of a horseshoe canyon, steep walls on 3 sides. The only exit was the northern road, now blocked by burning vehicles and scattered enemy fighters. The canyon walls were too steep for a wounded man to climb. They were boxed in. Unless... She zoomed in on the western canyon wall, where the approaching dust storm was beginning to obscure visibility. There, a narrow cleft in the rock, barely visible even through her high-powered optics. It appeared to lead over the ridge to an adjacent valley. If they could reach it before the main enemy force arrived, it might offer escape. Iron Wolf Actual, she transmitted. I have a possible exfil route. Western Canyon Wall, approximately 200 meters from your current position. There's a cleft that might lead through to the secondary valley. It's going to be tight, especially with a casualty. Better than staying here, Mercer replied. Donnelly can Price move. Negative on self-ambulatory. The Master Chief's voice was grim. He took one through the thigh. Bones intact, but he's lost blood. He'll need carry assist. Holloway Torres, you're on Price. I'll provide rear security. Mercer's voice was calm, but Kira could hear the calculation behind it. Moving a casualty under fire was a nightmare scenario. Every second of exposure was an invitation for disaster. The team began their withdrawal, moving in coordinated bounds. Holloway and Torres carried Price between them, the wounded man's face gray with pain. Donnelly laid down suppressing fire while Mercer coordinated their movement. Kira shifted her focus, hunting for targets. An enemy fighter appeared at the compound's main entrance. She fired. The man fell before he could raise his weapon. Another popped up from behind a vehicle. She fired again. The second shot missed by inches. The wind was picking up as the dust storm drew nearer, creating unpredictable eddies that threw off her calculations. Contact left, Holloway shouted. We've got hostiles on the eastern ridge. Kira swung her rifle up and right. Movement along a rocky outcropping, 900 meters distant, not the compound guards. These were the reinforcements from the disabled trucks. They had climbed to elevated positions and were preparing to rain fire down on the escaping team. She took the first man, a clean chest shot. He dropped without a sound. Reacquired. Fired again. The second fighter dove for cover behind a boulder. Smart. He had seen the first man fall and knew a sniper was hunting them. Kira waited, controlled her breathing. Watched for him to make the fatal mistake of assuming she had moved on to other targets. There, a helmet edge visible above the rock. She aimed 6 inches below, where she knew his head must be accounting for the stone he had hidden behind. Fired. The helmet jumped backward. Empty. But there were too many. For every enemy she eliminated, 2 more appeared. And her ammunition was finite. She had started with 50 rounds. By her count, she had 23 remaining. Iron Wolf 6, she transmitted. Be advised you have multiple hostiles establishing positions on the eastern ridge. I count at least 10, possibly more. They have height advantage and clear sight lines to your escape route. Can you suppress them? Mercer asked. Kira ran the math. 10 targets spread across 200 meters of terrain, all in covered positions, all aware that a sniper was watching. Negative. Not enough rounds and they're dug in. I can kill 3, maybe 4 before the others pin me down. The rest will have free shots at your team. Silence on the radio. She counted 5 heartbeats. 10. Then Mercer's voice came back. Different now. The commander asking for counsel instead of giving orders. "What do you recommend, Lieutenant?" It was the first time he had asked her opinion in combat. Despite the chaos, despite the fear clawing at her chest, Kira felt a strange clarity settle over her mind. "I need to reposition," she said. "If I can get to the ridgeline 400 meters south of my current position, I'll have flanking angles on those fighters. They're expecting fire from the west. I hit them from the south, they'll be exposed." "That's outside our communications range," Mercer replied. "If you get in trouble, I can't help you." "I know, sir, but it's the only way to keep them off you long enough to reach the cleft." Another pause. Gunfire rattled in the background. Someone shouted a warning. An explosion echoed across the valley. "Your father once disobeyed a direct order in Fallujah." Mercer's voice had changed again. Softer now. Almost reminiscent. "Saved 15 Marines doing it. Got a medal and a court-martial. Spent 6 months explaining why he was right to question his superior's judgment." He paused. "I'm not your superior right now, Lieutenant. I'm a commander with no good options. If you think you can do this, if you believe you can reach that ridge and stop those fighters, then I'm trusting your judgment." Kira felt the weight of his words. The trust, the responsibility. "But if you die doing this," Mercer added, "I'm going to be very angry at your father's ghost for teaching you to be this stubborn." Despite everything, Kira smiled. A small smile. Brief. Gone almost before it existed. "Copy that, sir. Iron Wolf 6 moving." She broke down her rifle position in seconds, collapsed the bipod, secured her gear, took one last look at the compound below where muzzle flashes lit up the darkness like deadly fireflies. Her team was down there, counting on her. She turned and ran into the darkness. The terrain was treacherous. Night vision goggles turned the landscape into alien greens and blacks, but they could not show her the loose stones that shifted under her boots, the hidden roots that grabbed at her ankles, the sudden drop-offs that appeared without warning. Kira moved as fast as she dared. Every few seconds, she glanced at her compass, maintaining her bearing toward the southern ridge. The rifle case banged against her back with each stride. 40 pounds of precision machinery that might as well have been 100. Her lungs burned. Her legs screamed. But she kept running. The dust storm was both enemy and ally. It reduced visibility to near zero, which meant the hostiles on the eastern ridge could not track her movement. But it also meant she could not see her targets. At extreme range, even the slightest atmospheric interference could turn a perfect shot into a miss. She reached the ridge position with 3 minutes to spare. The vantage point was exactly what she had hoped for, a rocky promontory that looked down on the eastern ridge where the enemy fighters had established their ambush. From here, she could see their positions clearly. 10 men spread across the rocks, rifles trained on the valley below. They had made themselves comfortable. They assumed they had all the time in the world to pick off Iron Wolf's retreat. They were wrong. Kira set up quickly using her rangefinder to measure distances. The closest target was 847 meters. The farthest was 194. Not impossible ranges, but not easy either, especially with wind and dust creating optical distortions. She pulled out a small notebook from her vest pocket, the same notebook her father had carried through 3 deployments. On the back page, written in his precise handwriting, was his formula for reading mirage, the technique of watching heat distortions through the scope to estimate wind speed and direction at the target location. In dust, the principle still applied. She just had to watch how the particles moved through her scope's field of view. The wind was gusting left to right at approximately 12 miles per hour. Temperature had dropped to 58 degrees. Altitude compensation was already calculated. She dialed in her adjustments, settled behind the rifle, found the stillness at her core. Iron Wolf actual to Iron Wolf 6. Mercer's voice crackled through her earpiece, barely audible through the static the storm created. "We're approaching the cleft, taking sporadic fire from the eastern ridge. Whatever you're going to do, do it now." Kira found her first target through the scope. A man with a Dragunov rifle, prone position, focused entirely on the canyon below. He never saw her, never knew death was watching from the south. Her shot echoed off the canyon walls. The man jerked once and lay still. Immediately, the other fighters reacted. But they reacted wrong. They assumed the shot had come from the west, from Kira's original overwatch position. They rotated their positions to face that direction, Exposing their backs to her, she took the second man, then the third, then the fourth. By the fifth shot, they had figured out their mistake. But by then, 5 of their 10 were dead or dying, and the survivors were scrambling for cover that did not exist. Rounds began impacting around her position. Ricochets screamed off stone. They had spotted her muzzle flash and were pouring fire in her direction. But she had already created the opening Iron Wolf needed. "Eastern Ridge is suppressed," Kira reported. Her voice was steady despite the bullets cracking past her head. "You have a window. Move now." "Copy. We're moving." A pause, more gunfire. "Outstanding work, Lieutenant." Kira allowed herself 3 seconds of relief, 3 seconds to breathe, to feel the weight lift from her shoulders. Then she saw it, movement on the compound's northern approach. Not the destroyed technical trucks. Something bigger. Something worse. Through the dust, she caught glimpses of angular armor. Desert camouflage paint. A turret that swiveled with mechanical precision. An armored personnel carrier. The kind of vehicle that should have been in a military depot, not in the hands of mercenaries in a remote Afghan valley. Except Sergei Volkov was not an ordinary mercenary. He was former Russian special forces with connections to arms dealers across 3 continents. He had resources that most private military contractors could only dream of. The APC's turret completed its rotation. Kira saw the thermal imaging unit mounted beside the main gun. Adrenaline spiked through her veins. The dust storm that protected Iron Wolf from visual detection would be transparent to thermal imaging. The vehicle would see their heat signatures, track them, run them down before they reached the cleft. "Iron Wolf actual." She transmitted urgency bleeding into her voice. "Be advised you have an APC entering the canyon from the north. Thermal equipped. You are visible to it. Repeat, the dust does not hide you from thermal." "Can you disable it?" Mercer asked. The strain was audible now. He already knew the answer. Kira studied the vehicle through her scope. Armored hull, reinforced turret, bulletproof viewports. Her rifle could punch through a lot of things, but military-grade armor plating was not one of them. "Negative on rifle fire. The armor's too thick. I need something heavier." "Options." She scanned desperately, looking for anything that might help. The APC was approaching the burning technical trucks, and there, mounted on the overturned vehicle's bed, was an RPG-7 launcher. It must have been thrown clear during the crash. The tube was dented but appeared intact. A canvas bag lay nearby, possibly containing warheads. It was 1,600 meters from her position, possibly damaged, possibly empty. But it was the only weapon in the canyon capable of stopping an APC, and it was lying in the open 200 meters from the approaching enemy vehicle. "I have an idea," Kira said slowly, "but you're not going to like it. Try me. There's an RPG near the burning trucks. If I can reach it before the APC spots me, I might be able to disable their vehicle. That's over a click from your position." Mercer's voice hardened. "Through open terrain, with hostiles everywhere, and that APC will see you the moment you leave cover." "I know, sir." "Negative, Lieutenant. Your orders are to provide overwatch, not conduct a solo assault." "Sir," Kira's voice was firm, "if that APC reaches the cleft, your team dies. All of you. Price can't run. Holloway and Torres can't fight while carrying him. You'll be trapped between the vehicle and whoever Volkov has left in the compound." She paused, letting the tactical reality sink in. "This is the only play." The radio went silent. Kira counted her heartbeats, felt the dust storm pressing closer, watched the APC crawl toward her team like an iron predator. "Your father," Mercer finally said, "would have done the same thing." "I know. If you die doing this, I'll never forgive myself." "Then I won't die." She heard something in his voice then, something that might have been pride, might have been fear, might have been both. "Go, Lieutenant, and for God's sake, be careful." Kira secured her rifle across her back and started running. Down the ridge, across open ground, into the swirling brown chaos of the dust storm. Her lungs screamed for air. Her legs burned with every stride. But she kept moving, kept pushing, kept counting the meters between herself and the burning trucks. The APC's engine growled somewhere to her left. How close the dust made acoustic ranging impossible. It could be 50 meters away or 500. She had no way of knowing until it was too late. She nearly ran straight into the burning technical before she saw it. The heat hit her face like a physical force. Flames still licked at the truck's cab, casting dancing shadows through the dust. The air smelled of burning rubber and diesel fuel and something worse. Something that had once been human. Kira pushed the thought away, focused on the mission. The RPG launcher lay 10 feet from the wreckage, half buried in dust but intact. She scrambled for it, her hands closing around warm metal. The tube was dented near the trigger mechanism, but functional. She popped open the back, checking for damage. The firing mechanism looked operational. The sights were intact. Now she just needed a warhead. She searched the scattered wreckage. Ammunition boxes, rifle magazines, a body with its face burned away. And there under a piece of twisted metal, a canvas bag that had been thrown clear. Inside 3 RPG-7 warheads, anti-tank rounds, exactly what she needed. A mechanical squeal cut through the dust. Metal treads on rock. The APC was close, very close. Kira loaded a warhead with trembling hands, primed the launcher, took a breath. In RPG training, they had taught her the optimal firing range was 200 meters. Closer was better for accuracy, but risked getting caught in the backblast. Farther risked the round going off course or failing to penetrate. The APC's shadow materialized from the dust like a metal ghost. 70 meters, 60, 50. She could see the turret now, the thermal unit rotating, searching. It would spot her heat signature any second. 40 meters, 30. She aimed for the side armor below the turret where the hull was thinner. Breathed. Waited for the vehicle to line up perfectly. Fired. The rocket whooshed from the tube, trailing white smoke. The backblast kicked up a cloud of dust behind her. For one terrible second, nothing happened. The round seemed to fly high. Her chest tightened. Then it dipped. Struck the APC's flank. Detonated in a blast that lit up the entire canyon. The explosion's shockwave knocked her flat. Metal debris rained down. She rolled behind the burning technical as machine gun fire raked the ground where she had been standing. The APC was not destroyed. The rocket had blown off part of its armor skirt and damaged one tread, but the vehicle was still mobile, still lethal. And now it knew exactly where she was. The turret swiveled toward her position. Kira grabbed the second warhead, loaded it with shaking hands. The technical's burning corpse provided cover, but the APC's autocannon would chew through it in seconds. She had maybe 5 heartbeats before the vehicle adjusted its aim and obliterated her. She popped up, aimed, fired without hesitation. This rocket hit the APC's turret ring, the weak point where the rotating mechanism connected to the hull. The explosion was smaller but more catastrophic. The turret froze in place. Smoke poured from hatches. The main gun drooped at an odd angle, disabled. But the vehicle itself kept moving, kept coming. Its treads churned against the rocky ground as the driver tried to ram her position. Kira loaded the third and final warhead. She did not wait for optimal range, did not calculate angles or win. She simply ran around the burning technical, found the APC's rear, where the engine compartment was least protected, and put the last rocket straight through its exhaust grill. The vehicle died with a groan of tortured metal. Internal fires consumed it from within. Hatches blew open as ammunition cooked off. The driver tried to escape and made it 3 steps before collapsing. Kira dropped the empty launcher. Iron Wolf actual. Her voice was ragged, breathless. APC is neutralized. Repeat threat eliminated. Copy that. Mercer's voice carried something she had never heard from him before. Something that might have been awe. We're at the cleft. Everyone made it. We're through to the secondary valley. Extraction helicopter inbound ETA 12 minutes. 12 minutes. She just had to survive 12 more minutes. Good to hear, sir. I'm en route to your position. Should be able to. The world exploded. She never heard the grenade. Never saw where it came from. 1 second she was standing, the next she was airborne. The explosion lifted her off her feet and threw her like a broken doll. She tumbled through the air, the world spinning in confused circles of dust and flame and darkness. She hit the ground hard enough to crack ribs. Her helmet saved her skull from the rocks, but not her consciousness from the impact. Stars burst across her vision. Pain flooded every nerve. Through blurred eyes, she saw figures approaching through the dust. 3 men. 4. moving with military precision, weapons raised. Not random fighters, professionals. Volkov's personal guard. The last thing she heard before the blackness took her was a voice. Deep, Russian accented, cold as a Siberian winter. Take her alive. I want to know how one woman destroyed my entire operation. And then nothing. Nothing but darkness and pain and the distant echo of her father's voice. A memory from childhood, from the Montana mountains, from a life that seemed a million years ago. When you fall, Kira, you get back up. Every time. No exceptions. Kira woke to agony. Her ribs screamed with every breath. Her head pounded like someone had driven railroad spikes through her temples. The copper taste of blood filled her mouth. She tried to move and discovered her hands were zip-tied behind her back. The plastic dug into her wrist with every small motion. Her legs were bound at the ankles. Her rifle was gone. Her pistol, her knife, almost everything. Through blurred vision, she made out a stone room. Low ceiling, no windows. A single light bulb swinging overhead, casting dancing shadows on rough-hewn walls. A cell. Somewhere in the compound she had been attacking hours before. 3 figures stood over her. 2 were guards, their faces hard and expressionless. The third crouched down, bringing his face close to hers. Blue eyes, pale and empty as a winter sky. A face carved from granite, silver threading through dark hair. Sergei Volkov. Lieutenant Ashford, he said. His English was accented but precise, cultured. The voice of an educated man who had chosen violence as a profession. The famous Iron Wolf sniper. You have cost me many men tonight. Kira said nothing, focused on her breathing, found the calm that had been drilled into her through years of training. Volkov smiled. It did not reach his eyes. My employer will be disappointed. He wanted the CIA man, and he paid well for discretion. Instead, you and your team have created an international incident. He stood pacing slowly around her prone form. But perhaps you will help me salvage something from this disaster. You will tell me how many SEALs are in the area, what their reinforcement schedule is, where your commander is going. Kira met his gaze, kept her face blank. Name, rank, serial number, nothing more. That was what they taught in SEER training. Resist, resist, resist. Volkov sighed. The sound was almost theatrical. You were taught to resist interrogation. Yes. Name, rank, serial number. But Lieutenant, I am not interested in your name. I have your identification. He held up her dog tags, dangling them in the light. I am not interested in information you do not have. I am interested only in... He moved faster than she thought possible. His fist drove into her broken ribs with surgical precision. White light exploded behind her eyes. Agony beyond anything she had ever experienced. She could not scream, could not breathe, could only writhe against her bonds as fire consumed her entire being. Making you scream, Volkov finished. You killed my brother tonight. He commanded that APC. I heard him burn alive over the radio crying for his mother. His voice dropped to a whisper. So before I kill you, Lieutenant, I will make you understand what pain truly is. Through the agony, Kira's mind kept working. Tactical assessment, even now, even in hell. She was behind the compound, zip-tied, injured, alone. Her primary weapons were gone, but her knife, the small blade she kept in a sheath strapped to her left ankle. They had searched her vest, her belt, her pockets, but they had missed the boot sheath. The blade was only 3 inches long, but it was sharp, sharp enough. Nothing to say, Volkov asked. No brave words, no threats. Kira met his eyes. When she spoke, her voice was steady despite the pain. My commander taught me that the most dangerous person in any room is the one who has nothing left to lose. She paused. Let the words hang. You should have killed me when I was unconscious. Volkov laughed. The sound bounced off the stone walls. And miss watching the light fade from your eyes, miss, hearing you beg. He pulled a knife from his belt, a long blade, wickedly curved. No, Lieutenant, you will die slowly, and when your friends come looking for you. The radio on his belt crackled. Russian words, fast and urgent. Volkov's expression flickered. He responded in kind, his voice sharp. Kira caught fragments. Movement. Ridge. Americans. Volkov turned to his guards, spoke rapidly. One of them nodded and left immediately. The other remained rifle-trained on Kira. It seems your friends are more persistent than expected. Volkov crouched down again, his knife glinting in the swinging light. 30 seconds, Lieutenant. I will give you 30 seconds to tell me where your team is heading. If you do, I kill you quickly. If you refuse, I start removing fingers. Kira flexed her wrists against the zip tie. The plastic dug deeper into her skin but did not break. She needed more time, needed him distracted, needed just a few more seconds. I'll tell you, she whispered. Let her voice crack. Let fear bleed through. Just don't hurt me anymore. Please. Volkov's smile was predatory, the smile of a wolf who smelled blood. Where are they going? The cleft. Kira's voice trembled. Western Canyon Wall, through to the next valley. How many? 5. She hesitated. No. 4. One was too wounded to walk. They might have left him. What is their extraction plan? Helicopter, landing zone Falcon, 4 clicks southeast. She let her voice break completely, let tears well in her eyes. Every ounce of acting ability she possessed went into this performance. Please, I've told you everything. Just make it quick. Please. Volkov knelt beside her. His knife glinted inches from her face. You think I am a fool? There is no landing zone Falcon in that region. You lie very badly, Lieutenant. He reached for her hand. Kira moved. Her legs scissored up and around his neck. Years of flexibility, training thousands of hours of mat work paid off in that single instant. She locked her ankles behind his head, squeezing with every ounce of strength in her core. A triangle choke, one of the most effective submission holds in close combat. Applied correctly, it cut off blood flow to the brain. Unconsciousness in seconds. Volkov grabbed at her legs, tried to pull free, but she had him perfectly positioned. His face turned red, then purple. He slammed her into the ground. Once, twice. Her broken ribs shrieked. Darkness crept at the edges of her vision. She held on. He fumbled for his knife. The blade slashed her thigh. Pain exploded. Blood poured. She held on. His movement slowed. His grip weakened. His eyes rolled back. She held on until he went limp, until his body collapsed against her legs, until she was absolutely certain he was unconscious. Then she released him and rolled away, gasping. The guard had been frozen by the sudden violence. He raised his rifle now, shouting in Russian, advancing toward her. Kira twisted her arms behind her back, ignored the pain, grabbed the knife from her boot sheath. The blade was sharp. The zip tie was not designed to resist cutting. The guard was 5 feet away when the plastic snapped, 4 feet when she pulled her hands free, 3 feet when she grabbed Volkov's fallen knife from the floor, 2 feet when she threw it. The blade took him in the throat. He dropped without a sound. Kira cut her ankle bonds with shaking hands, took the guard's rifle, Volkov's radio, his sidearm. She did not kill Volkov. Part of her wanted to. The part that remembered his fist driving into her broken ribs. The part that had heard him describe her slow death. But killing an unconscious enemy was not something her father would have done, and she would not dishonor his memory, not even here, not even now. She left Volkov breathing on the stone floor and slipped out into the dust storm, toward the cleft, toward her team, toward survival. Behind her, shouts of alarm began to rise. They had found their commander. They were organizing pursuit. Thermal scopes would pick her up despite the dust. She had minutes, maybe less. Kira ran, her ribs ground against each other with every stride. Blood from her thigh wound left a trail in the dust. Her head pounded, her vision blurred. But she kept moving. Her father's voice echoed from somewhere deep in her memory. A lesson, a command, a promise she had made to herself long ago. The canyon wall materialized from the brown murk. She found the cleft more by luck than navigation. A vertical crack in the rock, barely wide enough for a human body. Blood marked the stone where Price had been dragged through earlier. Her team had made it. They had survived. Now she just had to reach them. Kira squeezed into the gap. Jagged rock scraped her vest. Her injured ribs screamed at the pressure. But she pushed deeper. 10 feet, 20, 30, and emerged into a narrow defile on the far side. Don't move. She froze. Holloway stood 5 feet away, his rifle aimed at her chest, his face a mask of suspicion and exhaustion. "It's me," Kira managed. "Lieutenant Ashford. Prove it." Smart. Testing for Russian infiltrators using English speakers. SEER training covered this. "What did Commander Mercer say to me in the armory yesterday?" Holloway's eyes narrowed. Waited. "He said my father once told him the hardest shot is the one where you have to trust yourself completely." A long pause. Holloway's rifle lowered. "How are you alive?" His voice cracked. "We heard the explosion. Saw you go down. We thought, Volkov captured me. I got free." She swayed, caught herself against the rock wall. "He knows you're heading this way. He has at least 20 men left, possibly more. And they have thermal optics." From deeper in the defile voices. Movement. Mercer appeared, his face drawn with exhaustion and worry. "Ashford." The single word carried volumes. Relief. Disbelief. Something that looked like hope. "Sir." She straightened despite the pain. "Requesting permission to continue the mission." Mercer stared at her for a long moment. Took in the blood. The bruises. The way she held herself as if something inside was broken. "You're in no condition to fight." "With respect, sir, none of us are. But there are 20 hostiles behind me and one extraction helicopter in front of us. I can still shoot. I can still serve. Let me help." The commander looked at Holloway, at the growing light on the eastern horizon, at the dust storm that was beginning to fade. "Price can't move any faster than we're already going," he said quietly. "If they catch us in this defile, we're dead. All of us." Kira nodded. "Then we hold them here. Buy time for the extraction. We—" She looked at Holloway, at the rifle in his hands, at the fear he was trying so hard to hide. "Sergeant and I can create a kill zone at the cleft entrance. Funnel them into a crossfire. Every minute we hold them is another minute for the helicopter to arrive." Holloway stared at her. This woman he had doubted, had dismissed, had believed would be a liability. This woman who had destroyed an APC, escaped captivity, run through a dust storm with broken ribs, and was now volunteering to hold the line against overwhelming odds. "I'm in," he said. Mercer looked between them, saw something that had not existed before. Respect. Trust. The bonds that formed in the crucible of combat. 12 minutes, he said. "That's how long until extraction. Can you hold them for 12 minutes? Kira met his eyes. "We can try." "That's not good enough." "Then we will." The commander nodded slowly. There was nothing more to say. No guarantees. No promises. Just duty and determination, and the desperate hope that it would be enough. "Holloway, you're with Ashford. Set up at the cleft. Hold them as long as you can. Then fall back to the extraction point." He turned to leave, then stopped. Looked back at Kira with something in his eyes she could not quite identify. "Your father would be proud." Then he was gone, disappearing into the defile with the rest of the team. Leaving Kira and Holloway alone at the mouth of hell, they set up quickly. No words wasted, no time for doubt. Holloway took position on the left side of the cleft entrance behind a boulder that offered partial cover. Kira took the right, using a natural depression in the rock to stabilize her rifle. Crossfire. Anyone coming through the cleft would be caught between them. "How many rounds do you have?" Kira asked. 60, maybe 70. "You—" She checked the magazine she had taken from the dead guard. 30. "Not enough. Not nearly enough." "Then we make every shot count," Holloway said. They waited. The dust storm was fading. The sun was rising. Golden light crept across the canyon walls, painting everything in shades of amber and blood. Kira thought about her father, about the journal in her footlocker, about the truth at the heart of everything he had taught her. She was afraid, terrified. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But Holloway was beside her. Mercer and the team were behind her. Price was wounded and needed time. She would give them that time, whatever it cost. Movement in the cleft. Kira steadied her rifle, found that space between thought and action where instinct ruled. The first enemy soldier emerged from the gap. She fired, and the 12 longest minutes of her life began. The first enemy soldier died before he knew what hit him. Kira's round took him center mass, and he crumpled in the narrow gap of the cleft like a puppet with cut strings. The second man was smarter. He saw his comrade fall and threw himself sideways, pressing against the rock wall. But Holloway had anticipated the movement. His rifle cracked twice, and the man slid down the stone, leaving a dark smear behind him. For 3 heartbeats, silence. Then chaos erupted. More fighters poured through the cleft. Not one at a time now, but in coordinated rushes. 3 men. 4. Laying down suppressing fire as they advanced, trying to overwhelm the defenders through sheer numbers. Kira fired methodically. 1 target, 2, 3. Each shot precise despite the pain that lanced through her ribs with every breath. Beside her, Holloway matched her rhythm, his rifle speaking in controlled bursts. Bodies piled in the narrow gap. The enemy advance stalled. "First wave down," Holloway called out. "Count 8 hostiles neutralized." "Confirmed," Kira replied. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly as she ejected her spent magazine. 22 rounds remaining. "They'll regroup. Hit us harder next time." "How long has it been?" She checked her watch. The numbers seemed to blur and swim. 2 minutes. 10 more to go. The dust storm had faded to a thin haze. Morning light flooded the canyon, golden and merciless. Every shadow was disappearing, every hiding spot becoming visible. Through her scope, Kira watched the cleft entrance. Watched for movement. Watched for the next wave that she knew was coming. She thought about the journal in her footlocker, the words her father had written for her, never knowing if she would ever read them. The truth at the heart of everything he had taught her about duty and sacrifice. She had never understood those lessons before. Not really, not until now. "Movement," Holloway hissed. "Multiple contacts." The second wave came differently, smarter, more dangerous. First came the grenades, 3 of them arcing through the cleft entrance, bouncing off rocks, filling the air with thunder and shrapnel. Kira pressed herself into the depression, feeling fragments whistle past her head. Holloway cursed as something sliced his cheek. Then came the fighters. 12 of them this time, moving in pairs, covering each other as they advanced. Professional, disciplined. These were not the guards from the compound. These were Volkov's personal team, the best he had. Kira dropped the first man through the smoke. Holloway took the second. But the others kept coming, using their fallen comrades as cover, closing the distance with terrifying speed. "Fall back," she shouted. "Secondary positions." They scrambled backward, abandoning their prepared spots for whatever cover they could find. The enemy poured into the defile, spreading out, seeking angles. Kira found a boulder, pressed her back against it, felt bullets impact the stone inches from her head. This was not a fight anymore. This was survival. She popped up, fired, ducked, felt the heat of a round passing through the space where her skull had been a heartbeat before. Holloway's status, still breathing. His voice came from somewhere to her left. "But they're flanking 3 o'clock. She spun, saw the shapes moving through the rocks, fired twice. 1 man fell. The other dove for cover. Her rifle clicked empty. No time to reload. She dropped it and drew the pistol she had taken from Volkov's guard. 9 rounds, 9 chances. A fighter appeared around the boulder. Close. Too close. She put 2 rounds in his chest before he could raise his weapon. 7 rounds. Another one. Coming from the other side. She spun and fired. 6 rounds. "Kira!" Holloway's voice was strained. "Wrong. I'm hit." She found him slumped against a rock face, blood spreading across his shoulder. His rifle lay in the dirt beside him, just out of reach. 3 enemies advanced on his position. 20 feet away. 15. Kira did not think, did not calculate. She simply moved. 3 shots. 3 targets. 3 bodies falling. 3 rounds left. She reached Holloway, grabbed his vest, dragged him behind a larger boulder as bullets sparked off the stone around them. "Can you move?" "Think so." His face was pale, sheened with sweat. "Through and through. Missed the bone." She propped him against the rock and pressed her hand against his wound. Blood welled between her fingers, hot and slick. "Hold this. Pressure. Don't let go." "Kira." His eyes met hers. Something had changed in them. The hostility was gone. The doubt. The resentment. "Why did you come back for me after everything I said?" How I treated you. Because you're my teammate, she said simply. Because that's what we do. I was wrong about you. His voice cracked. I was so wrong. Tell me later. When we're not dying. She retrieved his rifle. Checked the magazine. 18 rounds. Better than nothing. How long? Holloway asked. She checked her watch again. Blinked. Checked once more. 4 minutes. 8 more to go. 8 more minutes of hell. The third wave hit before she was ready. They came from everywhere at once. Through the cleft, around the rocks, climbing over boulders. A coordinated assault designed to overwhelm any defense. Kira fired until her rifle ran dry. Dropped it. Drew her pistol again. 3 rounds. A fighter lunged at her from the shadows. She shot him at point-blank range. 2 rounds. Another one. Trying to circle behind Holloway. 1 round. The pistol clicked empty, and still they came. Kira grabbed a rock from the ground, smashed it into the face of a man who got too close, felt bone crack under the impact, took his knife as he fell. Close quarters now. No room for guns, no room for thought. Only instinct. Only survival. A blade slashed at her. She deflected it with her forearm, feeling the metal bite through her sleeve and into flesh. Countered with a strike to the throat. The man went down choking. Another attacker. Bigger. Stronger. He grabbed her injured arm and twisted. Pain exploded through her entire being. She screamed. Used the scream. Channeled it into a headbutt that shattered his nose. He released her. Staggered. She drove the knife into his chest. For a moment, everything stopped. The remaining fighters hesitated. 3 of them left, staring at this woman covered in blood and dust and fury. This woman who should have been dead 10 times over. This woman who refused to fall. Come on, Kira snarled. Her voice was barely human. A wolf's growl. Come on, they came, and she met them. The first one died with her knife in his throat. The second managed to knock her down, to pin her, to raise his own blade for the killing stroke. She caught his wrist, held it, felt her strength failing. Then Holloway was there. Shot the man with Kira's drop pistol, where he had found the ammunition she did not know, did not care. The third fighter ran. Silence fell over the defile, broken only by ragged breathing and the distant sound of helicopter rotors. How long? Kira gasped. Holloway checked his watch. His face split into something that might have been a smile. 12 minutes. They had held the line. The sound of the rotors grew louder. Kira looked up to see the most beautiful thing she had ever witnessed. A Chinook helicopter descending through the morning sky door guns, tracking for threats, the pilot bringing it in fast and low. Iron Wolf Actual. Mercer's voice crackled in her earpiece. Extraction is here. Fall back to the landing zone. Copy, she managed. Coming in. She helped Holloway to his feet. His shoulder was soaked with blood, but he could walk. They supported each other, stumbling through the defile toward the sound of salvation. The helicopter touched down in a swirl of dust and noise. The side door was open. Hands reached out to pull them aboard. Kira collapsed onto the deck, every ounce of strength finally depleted. Someone wrapped a thermal blanket around her shoulders. A medic appeared, checking her pupils, probing her ribs, cataloging her wounds. Through the haze of exhaustion, she saw Mercer kneeling beside her. His face was drawn with concern and something else, something that looked like pride. You held them, he said. 12 minutes against overwhelming force. You held them. We held them, Kira corrected. Her voice was a whisper. Holloway and me. Holloway sat against the opposite bulkhead, his shoulder being bandaged. He caught her eye and nodded. A simple gesture, but it carried the weight of everything unspoken between them. Respect, recognition, brotherhood. Price? Kira asked. Stable, Mercer replied. Lost a lot of blood, but he'll make it. They all made it. He paused. Because of you. The helicopter lifted off, banking hard away from the valley. Through the open door, Kira watched the compound recede. The burning vehicles, the scattered bodies, the place where she had almost died, the place where she had proven herself. Donnelly appeared beside her. The Master Chief looked older than he had 12 hours ago, the lines on his face deeper, the weight in his eyes heavier. Lieutenant, he said quietly, I owe you an apology. Kira shook her head. You owe me nothing, Master Chief. You were right to be cautious. I was unproven. Any good leader would have had concerns. But I was wrong about you." His voice carried emotion he rarely showed. "Your father was one of the finest soldiers I ever served with, and you are his daughter in every way that matters." He extended his hand. She shook it. "Welcome to Iron Wolf," he said. "For real this time." The flight back to FOB Viper took 40 minutes. Kira drifted in and out of consciousness, the medic's ministrations a distant sensation. Pain medication flowed through an IV line, dulling the sharp edges of her injuries. Dreams came, fragmented, vivid. Her father teaching her to shoot. Her father reading her bedtime stories. Her father standing in the doorway, duffel bag over his shoulder, his smile warm in the morning light. His last words to her, the promise he could not keep, the goodbye that was not supposed to be final. But he never came back. Never saw what she became. Never knew that his daughter would follow in his footsteps, would face the same dangers, would prove herself worthy of the legacy he left behind. Or maybe he did know. Maybe somewhere he was watching. Proud. She hoped so. The helicopter touched down at Viper as the sun climbed toward noon. A medical team was waiting. They loaded Price onto a stretcher and rushed him to the field hospital. Holloway walked under his own power, refusing assistance despite the wound in his shoulder. Kira tried to stand. Her legs buckled. Mercer caught her before she hit the deck. "Easy, Lieutenant. You've done enough." "I can walk," she protested. "You can barely stand." He helped her onto a stretcher despite her objections. "That's an order, Ashford. Let the medics do their job." She wanted to argue, wanted to prove that she was strong enough to walk off the helicopter like the others. But the exhaustion was too heavy, the pain too deep. She let them carry her. 3 days passed. Kira spent them in the medical bay. Her ribs wrapped her wounds, stitched her body slowly healing. The doctors told her she was lucky. 3 broken ribs, but no punctured lung. Deep lacerations, but no severed tendons. A concussion, but no skull fracture. Lucky. She did not feel lucky. She felt battered, broken, remade. Rumors spread through the base like wildfire. The story of what happened in Al Rahim Canyon grew with each telling. 20 kills became 30. 30 became 40. The APC she destroyed became a tank. The 12 minutes she held the line became an hour. Kira did not correct the exaggerations, did not seek out attention. She simply lay in her bed, read her father's journal, and waited for the official word. It came on the 3rd day. A knock on her door. Mercer entered, his face unreadable. "Get dressed, Lieutenant. Conference room, 1400 hours. Dress uniform." "Sir, just be there." She arrived to find the entire Iron Wolf team assembled. Donnelly, Holloway, Torres, Price in a wheelchair but awake and alert, and several officers she did not recognize, including a 2-star general with enough ribbons on his chest to wallpaper a room. Flags hung from the walls. A camera crew filmed from the corner. This was not a debriefing. "Lieutenant Ashford," the general began, "please approach." Kira walked to the front of the room. Her ribs protested every step, but she kept her spine straight. Her father had taught her that. Always stand tall, especially when it hurts. "For exceptional valor under fire," the general read from an official document. "For actions above and beyond the call of duty. For tactical brilliance that saved American lives and completed a critical mission. The United States Special Operations Command awards you the Silver Star." The room erupted in applause. The general pinned the medal to her uniform. Cameras flashed. Hands reached out to shake hers. But through the noise and the congratulations and the formality, Kira felt only one thing: the weight of the medal against her chest. The same weight her father must have felt when he received his own commendation years ago in a different war. After the ceremony, the officials filed out. The camera crew packed their equipment, but Iron Wolf remained. Holloway approached first, a smile on his face, a different man than the one who had questioned her abilities 3 days ago. "So, Hero," he said, "does this mean you're too good to train with us mortals now? It means I'll have higher expectations when I'm kicking your ass on the range." Laughter, genuine, warm. Donnelly clapped her on the back, carefully mindful of her injuries. Torres shook her hand. Price gave her a thumbs up from his wheelchair. "Mercer told us everything," Price said. What you did at the cleft, how you went back for Holloway, how you held them off with a knife when your ammunition ran out. He shook his head in disbelief. I've seen a lot of combat. Never seen anything like that. I did what anyone would have done. No. Donnelly's voice was quiet but firm. You did what very few could have done, and even fewer would have tried. Mercer waited until the others had congratulated her. Then he approached. His face carried an expression she had never seen before. Not pride, not satisfaction. Something deeper. Walk with me, Lieutenant. They left the building and crossed the base toward the shooting range. The Afghan sun beat down, turning the dust to gold. In the distance, helicopters practiced landing patterns. The war continued. It always continued. Your father, Mercer said eventually, would have been insufferable about this. He would have told everyone in every bar from here to Virginia Beach about his daughter, the Silver Star recipient. He never got one, Kira said quietly. A Silver Star, just the bronze. No, he got a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart and a reputation as one of the best snipers in the teams. Mercer stopped walking, turned to face her. But I think he would have traded all of it to see what you've become. Kira felt tears prick her eyes, forced them back. Soldiers did not cry, not in public, not even tears of gratitude. I need to ask you something, Mercer continued, and I need an honest answer. Sir, that night, when I gave you permission to go after the APC, when I basically told you to risk your life for the team, did you do it because you thought it was the only tactical option? Or did you do it because you were still trying to prove you belonged? The question hung in the air. Kira considered it carefully. She owed him honesty. He had trusted her, believed in her, given her the chance to prove herself. Both, she finally said. I believed it was the right call tactically. But yes, part of me wanted to show everyone I wasn't weak, wasn't a liability, wasn't just my father's daughter. Does that make it the wrong decision? I don't know, sir. I hope not. Mercer was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was thoughtful. Good commanders learn to separate ego from tactics. Great commanders learn to harness ego as a tool. You did something reckless that happened to work. Next time it might not. I understand. I need to know you'll be smart enough to recognize the difference. I will be, sir. I promise. He nodded, seemed satisfied. You're being considered for a commendation beyond the Silver Star, he said. CIA wants to give you their intelligence star for the role you played in recovering Shepard, and there's talk of a promotion. I don't want promotions or commendations, Kira said. I want to stay with Iron Wolf. I want to keep doing the work. And you will. Mercer's expression softened. But you've earned recognition, Ashford. Don't run from it. Your father never did. They reached the range. Kira's M2010 waited in its case, cleaned and maintained by the armory staff. She pulled it out, assembled it with practiced motions that had become as natural as breathing. Show me, Mercer said. One shot. That target at 1,200 meters. Show me the shot that made you famous. Kira settled behind the rifle, found the target through her scope, a silhouette barely visible in the afternoon haze, checked wind, adjusted for distance, temperature, altitude, slowed her breathing, found the stillness at her core. The trigger broke clean, the rifle bucked. Downrange, the target sprouted a hole dead center. Every time I see you do that, Mercer said quietly, I'm reminded why I fought the brass to get you on this team. You don't just shoot. You understand shooting at a level most people never reach. My father taught me. Your father taught you the basics. But what you did in that canyon, that was all you. He turned to leave, paused. Own it, Lieutenant. You've earned it. After he left, Kira remained at the range, firing shot after shot until her shoulder ached and her ammunition ran low. Each trigger pull was a meditation, a conversation with her father's memory. The sun began to set. The sky turned orange and red and purple. The mountains cast long shadows across the desert. She thought about everything that had happened. The mission, the combat, the fear and the pain and the triumph. The moment when Holloway had apologized, the moment when Donnelly had shaken her hand, the moment when the general had pinned the Silver Star to her chest. She had set out to honor her father's memory, to prove she was worthy of his legacy, to silence the doubters who said a woman could not do what she did. She had done all of that, but somewhere along the way she had done something more. She had become her own person, her own soldier, her own legend. Not Kira Ashford, daughter of Colonel Thomas Ashford, just Kira Ashford, Iron Wolf sniper, Silver Star recipient, a woman who had held the line when it mattered most. Her father would have been proud. She was certain of that now, but more importantly, she was proud of herself. The medical bay released her the following week. Her ribs were still tender, her wounds still healing, but she was fit for light duty. And light duty in the special operations world meant training. Kira threw herself into it. Physical conditioning to rebuild her strength, weapons drills to keep her skills sharp, tactical exercises with the rest of Iron Wolf, who now treated her not as an outsider, but as a sister. The change was gradual but unmistakable. Holloway became her regular sparring partner, pushing her to improve her close-quarters combat. Donnelly took her under his wing, sharing decades of hard-won wisdom about leadership and sacrifice. Torres taught her advanced communications techniques. Price, still recovering from his own wounds, spent hours discussing tactical theory. She was learning, growing, becoming more than she had been. 6 weeks after Alraheim Canyon, Mercer called her into his office. "New mission briefing tomorrow," he said. "Border region, high-value target extraction, overwatch position at 1,400 meters." Kira felt her pulse quicken. "I'm ready, sir." "I know you are." He handed her a folder. "But this time you won't be alone on that ridge. I'm assigning you a spotter, someone who requested the position specifically." She opened the folder. Read the name, Sergeant Blake Holloway. "He asked for it," Mercer said. "Said there's no one he'd rather have watching his back, and no one whose back he'd rather watch." Kira closed the folder. Felt something warm spread through her chest. "Tell him I accept." The night before the mission, she visited the memorial wall at FOB Viper. The names of fallen soldiers etched in stone. Heroes who had given everything. She found her father's name, Colonel Thomas Ashford. Ran her fingers across the carved letters. "I did it, Dad," she whispered. "I became the soldier you always believed I could be. I proved them all wrong, and I'm still going, still fighting, still honoring the uniform." The wind picked up, carrying dust across the courtyard. For a moment she could have sworn she heard his voice, low and warm and full of love. "I always knew you would, Kira. From the first time you picked up that rifle in Montana, I knew. You have the heart of a warrior, the soul of a protector, and now everyone else knows it too." "I miss you," she said. Her voice wavered, just slightly. "I'm always with you. Every shot you take, every life you save, every time you stand up when everyone else would fall down. That's me, kiddo. That's us. That's what we are." The wind died. The voice faded, but the warmth remained. Kira stood at the wall until the stars came out, until the base quieted and the world settled into the deep silence of the desert night. Then she turned and walked back to her quarters. Tomorrow there would be another mission, another chance to prove herself, another opportunity to honor her father's legacy while building her own. She was ready. The helicopter lifted off at 400 hours. Kira sat beside Holloway, their rifles secured between their knees. The rest of Iron Wolf occupied the other seats' faces, set in the familiar pre-mission concentration. Mercer caught her eye from across the cabin. Nodded once. She nodded back. Outside the window, Afghanistan rolled past in shades of darkness. Mountains and valleys in danger. The same landscape that had nearly killed her. The same landscape where she had discovered who she truly was. Holloway leaned close, speaking over the rotor noise. "Ready for round 2. Kira checked her rifle, checked her ammunition, checked the photo of her father that she kept in her vest pocket close to her heart. "Always." The helicopter banked toward the target zone, toward danger, toward duty, toward everything she had been born to do. They had looked down on her once. The instructors who said she would fail, the teammates who doubted her abilities, the enemies who underestimated her resolve. They had all been wrong. She was Kira Ashford, daughter of a legend, Silver Star recipient, Iron Wolf sniper, and she was just getting started. The mountains rose ahead, dark shapes against the lightning sky. Somewhere in those peaks a target waited. A mission needed completing. Lives hung in the balance. Kira settled back in her seat and closed her eyes, found the stillness at her core. The calm center she had cultivated through years of training, the place where fear could not survive. Her father had taught her about that place, had shown her how to find it when the world was chaos and death was close, had given her the tools to survive when survival seemed impossible. But she had built it herself, strengthened it, made it her own. That was his greatest gift, not the shooting skills or the tactical knowledge or the warrior's discipline, but the belief that she could become something extraordinary, the faith that she would rise to meet whatever challenges came. He had been right, and now as the helicopter carried her toward another mission, another test, another chance to prove herself, Kira felt only one thing: gratitude. For the father who had believed in her, for the commander who had given her a chance, for the teammates who had become brothers, for the trials that had forged her into something stronger than she had ever imagined. She opened her eyes as the pilot announced their approach to the drop zone, checked her equipment one final time, met Holloway's gaze and saw her own determination reflected back. Iron Wolf 6. Mercer's voice came through her earpiece. Prepare for insertion. Kira grabbed her rifle, stood, moved toward the open door where the wind howled and the world waited. Iron Wolf 6 ready, she replied, and she stepped out into the darkness, into the danger, into the life she had chosen. The life her father had given her the courage to live. The life she would honor with every breath, every shot, every moment of every day. She was Iron Wolf, and she was just beginning. Was.